Coming right up, Straight Talk with Art Levine, a report from Washington, D.C. with our Congressman Dana Rohrabacher.
Opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Charter Communications nor its sponsors. We recognize our obligation to present opposing points of view by responsible spokespersons. For information, please contact the director of program.
She stands in the face of evil and will not lose hope or faith. America, the land of freedom, is still the home of the brave. So raise the banner called Old Glory. Let us join our fellow man. History will write the story. America will always stand.
Straight Talk is brought to you in part by Southern California Edison. For over 100 years, life powered by Edison. The Press Telegram, your local news leader for over 100 years.
Join us for tonight's edition of Straight Talk. And now your host, Art Levine.
Good evening and welcome to Straight Talk. We have a great show for you tonight. Our guest for the entire show, direct from Washington, D.C., is our Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. Dana, welcome back to Straight Talk.
Great to be with you.
Give us a report on the deficit, the debt, the budget. We're spending money like it's going out of style.
Well, 6 years ago, the level of deficit spending in the Congress was $160 billion a year. That was considered a travesty, a crime.
Which it was.
It was a crime against America's youth. In the last 3 years, it's been $1.5 trillion, 10 times the amount of deficit spending. And frankly, it's chaotic. We have been bailing out Goldman Sachs and big money people have been receiving, banks, et cetera, have been receiving tens of billions of dollars. And it's a tragedy because our young people are going to be stuck with an extra $1.5 trillion a year debt.
Absolutely. But let's go back 6 years. Under President Bush, we were fighting a war, which some agree with, some didn't, but we didn't tax to pay for that war. And normally when we enter a war, taxes go up to pay for it. This was the first time in history we didn't, and actually, that added a lot of debt to fight that war.
Actually, in the Vietnam War, we didn't raise taxes. Kennedy's tax cuts were cutting taxes at that time.
But as a conservative, I think you would agree that we should pay for what we're doing.
It was a mistake to go into Iraq, and there's no doubt about that now. And I supported the president when he suggested it, but I assumed that he had a plan that was a workable plan. He did not, and Bush let us down. That cost us about $1 trillion.
But even if you agreed with going into the war, as you said you did at the time, but now, but regardless, if we're going to enter it, we should pay for it.
Yeah. Well, just by the way, that's not part of the $1.5 trillion we're spending.
Well, then we had the meltdown.
Yeah.
Which we could spend hours talking about, and Obama inherited a mess.
By the way, when you're talking about the war, I hope you do know that the first Gulf War didn't cost us anything. No. We actually, Kuwait paid us back, and Saudi Arabia kicked in, and we actually made money on that war. That war did not cost us a penny. This time, it cost us over $1 trillion, 5,000 dead, or maybe 6,000, and I was just over in Iraq, and I talked to the Prime Minister, and during our meeting, it was a big formal meeting, and I said, Mr. Prime Minister, my country is about to go into a crisis, a financial crisis. You are going to be one of the richest countries in the world. You've got more oil and gas than Saudi Arabia.
Will you help us out?
I just said, whenever you become prosperous, I hope you will consider repaying that money.
And he said, I remember reading the quote.
Yeah, he acted like I had insulted him, and he sent word that I should be kicked out of the country. And he went out to the reporters afterwards and said, "Oh yeah, we're grateful, but they're not going to get one red cent." Well, you know what? Anything that Iraq is going to get has to go through my committee, and we're not going to give them one more red cent. And not only will I not apologize, I think the American people ought to take a lesson from this. If people are not grateful for the help that we give them, we shouldn't be giving them any help.
Well said. And just going back to Iraq War I, we went in with overwhelming force, and the thing was over in a flash. And the Secretary of Defense under President Bush, under W, believed in going in light, and the planning was not good for the aftermath.
Oh, see, I just totally disagree with that theory.
Okay.
Because the bottom line is we shouldn't have gone in at all.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and going in, what we should have done is what we have done that Ronald Reagan found so useful, and that is you help the enemies of your enemy. Let the enemies of your enemy do the fighting. Don't send your own troops in. We could have supported the Kurds. We could have supported Shiite generals there. If we had to get rid of Saddam Hussein, which is what Bush felt compelled to do, we could have done it a different way without sending our troops in.
And to take your point one step further, our real existential enemy, and also that of Israel in that region, is Iran.
Right.
And Iraq was a counter to Iran. So what we did is weaken Iraq, a major enemy of our real enemy, Iran.
Yeah, and I let me mea culpa. I was a Republican. We had just gone through this situation in Afghanistan where we had defeated the Taliban, and I did support the president. The president asked for the support in that. I assumed that he had a plan that would work. He did not. And
would you fault the Secretary of Defense for the planning then?
Well, no, I wouldn't, because I'm sure the Secretary of Defense was following President Bush's orders.
Well, but the president doesn't plan these things.
The president decides strategy, believe me. The president decides.
But we have experts that we pay a lot of money for that should know these things.
Well, let me give you an example. After 9/11, all the experts were telling President Bush to go into Afghanistan through Pakistan, using the northwest provinces as our staging area. Well, as you know, I've got a long history in Afghanistan supporting the Mujahideen, and then actually during the 90s I was in Afghanistan organizing a coalition against the Taliban. That coalition became the Northern Alliance. But all the experts that were advising the president wanted to go in with these heavy divisions from Pakistan, and the president made the decision that we should use the Northern Alliance and only put in special forces teams.
That was a good call.
It was a good call.
I remember those guys on horses. That was a great shot of them.
I knew all of them. In fact, I'm the proudest thing I've done in my career as a member of Congress was to ensure we didn't have that defeat, which it would have been had we come in after 9/11 that way, but instead we had a victory by I introduced them to the guys who would do the fighting.
And going back to Iraq for a second, regardless of whether we were right or wrong going in, once we were in and we were really stuck, President Bush, against the advice of almost everyone, pushed for the surge, and that worked out well.
Except that wasn't what did it. I mean, people think the surge of troops did it. It had nothing to do with that at all.
The deals with the
warlords. What happened with the surge was that, we put in a bunch more troops, which we didn't have to do, but that was a cover for the amount of money that we were putting in to buy off various tribal leaders. Yeah, buying off tribal leaders is a good thing if it saves lives. Yeah. Great. It worked when we defeated the Taliban. And I'm afraid that George Bush he is somewhat responsible for the economic troubles that we have today. However,
thank you. You heard it here from a Republican,
long-time
Republican.
However, Mr. President Obama has turned a bad situation into a catastrophe.
By doing what?
By basically being as irresponsible as George Bush was in getting us involved in Iraq. Obama has been irresponsible in dealing and shoveling billions of dollars out the door with very little accountability. And what we have now is $4.5 trillion of debt that we didn't have before. Before Obama, now what is the interest rate on $4.5 trillion? And by the way, you look deep enough, he is hiring people by the thousands to come and wring money out of the population. IRS, more IRS agents. All of this thing about the health care, no one told you that there's going to be 6,000 more people to go into small business to make sure they're meeting all of the regulations. And this type of power grab has cost us dearly in our freedom and our prosperity.
We'll be continuing this conversation after these messages. Stay with us.
Supported by Edison International. Californians are getting to be old hands at year-round energy conservation, part of our special awareness of the resources we all depend on. We're making the change to energy-efficient light bulbs, keeping warm weather thermostats set to a comfortable 78 degrees, and giving major appliances the afternoon off. Because when it comes to energy conservation, it all adds up. Life, powered by Edison.
I want to improve my career opportunities.
I want to earn a higher salary at my job.
I'd like to finish what I started.
The new Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts degree completion program at Cal State Long Beach will help you achieve your educational goals while keeping your life in balance. Contact our customer service center at 1-800-963-2250 for more information, or visit us on the web. Let CSULB help you finish what you started.
This is Audrey Kerr, sharing with you just one of the 100 centennial moments we chose to mark this special occasion. Oil extraction in the harbor once caused the ground to sink by as much as 30 feet or more in some parts of the harbor. The solution to this subsidence, pumping salt water into the ground to keep it from sinking, is considered by all an engineering wonder.
As your business searches for smart ways to save, don't forget about the one that's right in front of you. Switch to the Charter Business Bundle and you can save big without sacrificing a thing. Get reliable business telephone and high-speed internet with local support and great features. Power your business with great savings starting today. It's easy to pay less and get more. Call now and make a switch to the Charter Business Bundle.